Oh, yeah. Hey. Welcome to part 3 of this daily about inefficiency in ZvZ Zerg. Thanks to Jaedong. Let's check this out. We talked about this idea of being aggressive using attacking units in the long term to keep our opponent pulled back, and relying on minerals and larvae in order to maintain our edge. So this simple scout from Jaedong, as he moves in, he gets to see these two evolution chambers here. Great. Almost certainly now he can pin his opponent on doing something a little roachy, makes sense. Very difficult to go for any sort of muta-ishness with these things down, and also having seen no geysers at all. But here's something that I love. Jaedong just suddenly throws down his 2 Zergling upgrades. What? Do it, Jaedong. Hit that M button. MC. Oh, yes. That's what I'm talking about. He is going to be going for just mass linging thingings. Still making a lot of drones. Notice the queen, the 3rd queen, is only coming out just now. He's like staying very delayed on that. He's teching up to the layer, but I mean, we can see what's happening over on the enemy's side of things. Life is, I think, doing the smartest thing that he could do right now. He's just going to go for an expand of his own. He's not going to mess around and try to like attack or do some sort of huge push. But the layer tech is ahead. Up on this top side, we see that Life is doing quite well in that front. So how can Jaedong possibly defeat an opponent who has faster roach speed? Well, Jaedong says, well, sweet, I'm just going to get more Zergling upgrades. Floods a good all-round droning, and then suddenly gets himself all the lings that one would ever dream possible. Some nice little exchangements there. Some exchangements here. So let's take a look at Jaedong's production while he does all this harassment. So what's pretty typical for a player in Life's position right now is to be just creeping down, moving slow roaches to get into defensive positions. Jaedong's looking for opportunities to deal damage. The most important thing, it might look like, excuse me, he's really screwing his timing up because his upgrades aren't done yet. But what's most important of all is that his enemy doesn't have +1 on the Roach upgrades. Because +1 is 17 damage a shot, or excuse me, 18 damage a shot. 18 times 2 is 36. It's enough to kill a Zergling that has 35 health. So killing off these queens, a nice little pickup. And you see the glial reconstitution going down. Jaedong is just harassing his heart out at this point. And guess what is this? A 4th hatchery. Ooh! Ooh! Getting more Zerglings. Starting to get these +2, +1 upgrades. Jaedong, in other words, is leveraging minerals and more larvae. And this is where he's starting to turn back into an efficient army by just getting mass upgrades. I just think this is super cool. Just like mass ling with some roaches. Now, we're seeing also out of Life, I just think, totally beautiful moves. Really nice, elegant placement of spine crawlers and queens and roaches sort of dangling around every which way. We're seeing speed burrow. We're seeing burrow itself. I mean, I just love everything that Life is doing in Answer. I just love what Jaedong's doing more. So cool, now that we've got some roaches, we're going to see the same theme out of Jaedong. He's just going to be largely flooding roaches. Sneaking in some drones in here. Moves these overseers in. These aren't just information overseers going, "Durr. Any tech structures to see?" It's going, wait, okay, no gas geysers. Wait, there's a gas geyser starting there? Alright. And I didn't see any units. Do I see any units here? Keeping the overseers alive is critical, because we're a counterattacky peoples. Roaches non-stop being produced by le Jaedong. Really, really, really swag. Hold on, let me shut this window really fast. Is this window open? Can't tell. I think it's shut. Alright, I guess there's very thin glass in here. So what we're going to see in this first segment of this game, to kick off part 3, look at this, moving forward, ooh! Why would you use a contaminate to knock that down? Because we're putting our opponent's larva behind. We're getting the larva lead. We're starting to get how to think in terms of larva. It's pretty sick. You know what else is sick? Contaminate is the most expensive spell in the game. There is nothing that costs 125 energy except Contaminate. Everything else is 100 or less. I don't know. I didn't make it. Didn't make the game. That is the most important to nerf thing in the entire game. It's Contaminate. A lot of larvae coming up. A lot of larvae. Ooh. Ooh, look at all that larva coming off. So Jaedong has clearly a smaller army. A way the heck smaller army. Look at this. 52 to 34. Jaedong stays steadfast and true to his commitment. And the lings run right on in. Smaller, cheaper units splitting up. A queen here, a queen there, here a queen, there a queen, everywhere a queen, queen. Now here's the kind of funky thing. Why did we go for such a larval focus? Because here we see life with a lot of units. This is 24 here. That's another 8. That makes it 32, 36, 37 roaches. We see out of Jaedong, not hugely different, but boy does defender's advantage matter. While all this is going on up here with 1-2 Zerglings. Wow, 1-2, that's pretty sick. The defender's advantage. Now look at the roach counts. Jaedong has 1 more roach at this front side. Even though the roach lead is much higher, or the roach lead is just clearly with life in this front, we can look around and we see some roaches over here. We see some roaches here. There's like 1 here. There's a whole bunch coming back to deal with the lings. Oh, yeah. That dong, da dong, dong, dong. Not killing a huge amount of workers, but the queen lead does go with Jaedong. Starting to build Zerglings. Why? So he can spend all that larva. Keeping the larva count very low is a good sign of your health as a player in this spot. Because it's very easy to be like, alright, I'm going to only go roaches, and I'm just going to have a 4th hatchery lying around. Because Day9 said that was good. I mean, it's a real commitment and focus for Jaedong to know that his lead does directly relate to how ahead he can stay in terms of larva, and it's useless unless he's spending it. So we see not quite as many roaches still, but lings also prevent life from really being able to go anywhere and do much of anything. The only issue that we're going to be seeing out of our kind friend Jaedong is that life still is, like, in this very moment, suddenly things are about equal. Jaedong has battled his way back to equal. They both kind of have more or less the same amount of gas. I mean, the drone count is more or less the same. Just this hatchery is what Jaedong has as a lead. And I think that Jaedong begins to slowly fall behind here with a couple of key shots. And I think that what Jaedong could do in a spot like this, where things are quite tense, and possibly the only lead he has anymore is in the larva, is do a little funky transition to banelings. If you get enough banelings, you just wreck in Roach vs. Roach battles. If you do not believe me, watch the nation war between TLO and Dimaga on this map. And that is uploaded somewhere. I think it's the Total Biscuits channel. This is so cool to have this many overseers. You can just get so many contaminates off and like screw up your opponent's larva production so hard. Oh yeah, actually Jaedong doesn't have a geyser in his main. Ah, that's right. So he actually is a little bit behind in the gas count, but look, it's more or less even. More or less the same game. So the only edges that do lie with life are burrow, a +2 missile attack, right there. So it's all going to be kind of up to tactics. We see that Jaedong's vision isn't as expansive as it was in the previous game. Life's vision actually a little bit better. And then I'd just say some pretty typical exchanges happen from here on out. And Jaedong isn't quite able to close it out. 52 to 64 plus some lings. This is why I just really like the idea of getting banelings in there and staying defensive, because life doesn't have a 4th hatchery. It's very difficult for life to do a lot of the big transitions that he wants. I think the baneling transition for Jaedong would be faster. And then this engagement is where life wins because of defender's advantage, concave advantage, and roach count was a little bit ahead for him. So indeed we got the chance to see the same style, the same look for Jaedong used. And it very nearly got himself another win. Very, very nearly, but just not quite. So I like that one because it's an example of it not working. It's an example of a game where you might watch that and go, man, what was Jaedong doing? He was trying to do all this crazy stuff. And life just built roaches, got more upgrades, and won. I guess that's the right way to play. We don't actually have to think that, because we saw in that game at 15 minutes, they were functionally equal. Just an extra hatchery for Jaedong, and tunneling claws for life. And we might make weird choices, like to go for baneling. Late game Zerg vs. Zerg, actually very, very strong, if your baneling count is high. Well, God, what do we need for a high baneling count? Larvae. And you know what's cool? We even have the +1/+1 upgrades. That will help our banelings. And we can still use speed Zerglings to keep the mass roach army from life relatively defensive while we get that up. If we see him coming to swing to counter us, we can pull back. I'm actually curious. I'm going to watch... I want to watch another game in this series. I wasn't expecting to have... I'm only 14 minutes in. Why not? Let's do a bonus game. I haven't seen this game. I haven't seen the Yunsu game. It was short, and I wanted to take a look at some of the longer games to see some interesting patterns, to showcase those. But I think that the short games now have much more meaning. This might be a useless game to watch. But we see Yunsu. It's another 2-player map. Jaedong just goes for the hatch. He's going to go for his pool. I'd love to see geysers come down. Looks like no, he's not going to be doing anything like that. And we might be able to make sense of this because we'd say, well, gee, counterattacking is pretty hard. I mean, it's just, you guard that. But I wonder if Jaedong is going to do any more of that massing type style. It doesn't really look like it. I think we're going to see a fast +1 upgrade out of this. Yeah. Yeah, life should win this game with the big push. Well, this game's going to be totally useless to watch. When Day 9 watches fast, things become a disaster. He can't see anything that his enemy is doing. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. What are roaches doing here? It really isn't clear, but I did not prepare to have them come up in my face. I have lots of transfuse, but +1 attack he'll abuse. He has more supply than me, so I'm forced to choose. GG. Alright, that game's not that interesting. I'm actually curious to see. Frost is one of these maps where I would really love one of these attack-focused styles out of Jaedong. Although, I mean, I like it because of the openness. Due to the size, it might suffer, but man, are these third bases just exposed as hell. This is one where I actually really would like sort of +1/+1 lings into 4-hatch. Very similar to what we saw in the last game. Excuse me. So I'm going to be taking questions in a bit, but while I'm watching this game, let's go ahead... Oh, this is wrong player. I'll go ahead and recap. Jaedong does a lot of very speed unit-focused plays to keep his opponent on the defensive footing, and then rather than use it as an opportunity to tech up, which is somewhat standard in many matchups, Jaedong uses it as an opportunity to expo up. And after expoing, he keeps getting fast units in larger and larger quantities and keeps his opponent on the back foot. You want to scout? Okay, you get to. Did he end up getting in there? No. Yeah, look at this. Ultra fast expo. Love this. Lots of Zerglings coming out. Not even identifying too much about his opponent. But speed's done, and checking on the gas. Checking on the gas. Recently acquired gas geyser. Very typical for players in these positions to see expansions and respond with expansions, but I mean, look, huge drone deficit, but I like the control that we're seeing out of Jaedong. Now, this is a weird play. It's very easy to want to go for this, but I call this cutting in. Anytime you see, let me move over here. Anytime you have two important locations, such as 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, you go between them, push really hard towards the one you don't want to attack, and then pull back. It's really good, because it allows you double damage. This is for sure dead. So we're going to go ahead and try to deal as much damage here as humanly possible before moving elsewhere. Oh, what do you know? Look, I found a queen. She has exploded on the ground. I'll kill a drone or 2 or 10 and try to end the game when I can. Here a queen, there a queen, everywhere a dead queen. Kill a drone, kill a thing. Everywhere I ling. Continued ling production. Not a lot of drones. Jaedong will do this Evo Chamber Roach Warren thing, same as before. I like the idea of cutting here and then pulling back to guarantee a kill here, but, you know, Jaedong is a little smarter than I, but cutting in is pretty common. So look, tech is the de-emphasized portion. Fast units and more bases. That's a gorgeous pinwheel. I like that. So cool. Jaedong sees, aha, you have walled yourself in. 0 opportunity to deal any damage additionnel. So what should Jaedong do? Maybe get a few drones, but more important, he should begin massing roaches. AFAP. Massing roaches. He should get just enough lings, or excuse me, just enough drones to have 16-ish here, but definitely 16 here, definitely 16 here. And then he should be going for 3 hatches of worse roaches versus 2 hatches of better roaches. Because life almost certainly has better roaches. And if I had to predict how this game would pan out, it would be exactly that. The Jaedong gets attacked, defends, and wins very, very easily with worse, less upgraded roaches. Build a hatch. Hey, look at some of those other techniques. Burrow and roaches coming in big numbers. So in the roach count, we see that the dong is starting to overrun. The dong is the one having the fun. Oops, the dong. 139 to 132. Life is playing this out just as well, I think, as a person can. But don't forget, lings can trap roaches. Isn't that amazing? Startail Life can also kill things 'cause he's amazing. Jaedong has a huge lead in roaches. They're worse roaches. They're not as upgraded. Look at the production tab. But Jaedong's got more. A lot beats a little every day of the week. Welcome to StarCraft 2. Is just elegant. Supremely pretty, supremely great, supremely gonna cause ladder rage. That was cool. We got a chance to see a random game from this series. Didn't watch, we saw Jaedong do the same thing. Taking question time. Question 1 from Drodo. Let us take it and then not act like we're a bozo. Subscribers off. Drodo says, if our goal is larva, 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 is a second macro hatch outside the realm of possibility? It's not outside the realm of possibility. We do need to get up a third pretty fast so we can have enough income to spend our larva. We do get a considerable boost in income on a third base. But I'm trying to think when that macro hatch would happen. I'm trying to think when it would happen, because here's 2 spots to consider. Do we go for 3 base, and then first macro hatch, second macro hatch? Well, if we can go for a second macro hatch, we probably should just be building that on another base, and then treating that base, our 4th, as a macro hatch. That's exactly what we saw in the first game. The other one would be to say, well, should we go early expand, then macro hatch in main? Well, why build the macro hatch in main if you can just build it at your expansion? I just don't... I mean, it's not outside the realm of possibility, but almost every time I can think of where you would want to get a macro hatch in your main base, you could just as easily put it as a 3rd or a 4th base. Once again, huge shout out to Louis Valgas and Josiah Deal for sending those replays. Okay, cool. Aha, so Cerebral09 says, Day 9, if I'm not very good at larva inject timing yet, should I aim for a sooner hatch, macro/expand to compensate? No. You should focus only on your larva injects until that is really, really good. No reason to think of a way to take wrong play and optimize it. Just fix what the leaky problems are. So I might say, you know, if you are someone who's struggling with larva inject timings, what I want you to do is just create a little training series for yourselves where you are playing on a map and you're just trying to nail all your larva injects while doing a normal build, which would include building extra, getting upgrades, getting roaches, scouting, moving things around the map, and ramp the difficulty up for yourself. So you might say, okay, I'm going to do this build order where I'm going to eventually have 3 base and I'm going to max out and I'm going to try to hit every single inject. But I'm not going to scout or try to move my overlords into position. I'm just going to ignore that. And then as you get better, you're like, okay, now I'm going to be conscious of where to send overlords while still trying to nail my larva injects. And then after I've done that, let me try to be scouting at the start of the game while still nailing all my larva injects. And then finally, I'm going to be trying to nail all my larva injects number 1, no matter what. I'm going to make sure I always am doing that. But then I'm going to be moving units around the map to check things. I'm going to be getting upgrades. I'm going to be really fleshing a build out. I'm going to be fake microing against no one. God, I keep getting really something like stuck in my throat. So, yeah. So there's a concrete way to begin working on that. Yeah, so Exigogo says, Day 9, how are a few banelings the better choice to more roaches in Roach vs. Roach Wars when you have the larva lead? 50 gas, or basically says yeah, 50 gas per larva for banelings, 25 gas plus larva for Roach, and Jaedong was mineral heavy. So it has to do with not thinking in the moment. Like, anytime you have a whole lot of larvae, definitely make sure that you are going banelings. It's sort of like leading up to that, what's everything that Jaedong has as an available tool? Well, he has speed zerglings in reasonably high numbers to be able to do these counterattacks. And banelings are really good in Roach vs. Roach fights when the numbers are high. For instance, if you have 10 roaches and 10 banelings, let me actually be a little more accurate. If you have like 10 roaches and 15 banelings versus 20 roaches, 20 roaches is probably going to win. 10 roaches and 10 banelings versus 20 roaches is definitely going to win. But if you have something like 50 roaches and a whole bunch of banelings against like 65 roaches, each of those baneling hits is going to be getting huge value. I'm trying to see if I can actually... Let me actually see if I can find this game. Roaches are... well, actually, this is just an obvious thing. I don't know why I'm overcomplicating it. Banelings are really good when there's huge numbers of things, because you hit more stuff. So by being really aggressive and going for this high larva style in that game too, Jaedong was pretty close to even with his opponent, but they were both only building roaches and were really only able to have roaches at that point in time. So a quick switch to baneling, I think, could have been an interesting tool there. But obviously, it doesn't have to be the only thing to do, because it's an even game. It's basically anyone's game at that point. Let me do TLO Dimaga Nation War. I don't know if it is uploaded. The little one, Dimaga Nation War? Is this it? Where is it? I don't know. I think it's one of these two videos that I'm looking at. No, that's not it. Skip ad. I'm trying. I really want to show this. Here we go. All right. So here is a cast that I did with Total Biscuit of a game that went to mostly roaches, and then Dimaga had some banelings here that just wrecked through. TLO actually had a 10 roach lead at the start of this, and it just got pummeled. So again, everything rolling on in. So it's really hard to get just suddenly like 50 banelings without the larva. Dimaga did a very similar style to what we saw in this other scenario. So again, TLO had a lead in roaches at this point, but then and it was gorgeous. So yeah, you can find that on Total Biscuit's StarCraft channel. Definitely recommend that one. Oh, Threxor says, what would be more important in the style of play, killing queens or hatcheries? Killing queens. But kill a hatchery if you can. Much harder to kill a hatchery. That's it. I'm done. I'll see you tomorrow for my play of Reynad's Warrior Beatdown. Decktacular time. Ooh.